Do you believe in heaven?
Do I believe in heaven? Because Jesus Christ promised heaven to all who trust in him, yes, sir, I believe in heaven.
So there's like souls in heaven that are like there. Like there's like all these dead people and their essences like remain in like a reservatory there.
Yes, I am convinced that my mother, who died 4 weeks ago, her body is rotting in a grave, but her soul, her personality is in the presence of Christ, which is a different dimension.
Different dimension. Okay. Do you believe in hell?
I believe there will be a hell when Christ returns and there's a day of judgment, and he will destroy evil, and there will be a hell.
So the entities that didn't go to heaven, that went to hell, are in purgatory?
No, I don't see anywhere in the Bible where purgatory is taught, so I don't think there's a purgatory, but I think that people who don't accept Christ are in a resting place where they're waiting for the day of judgment.
Have you ever tried to access them?
No. But I have had friends who have, who are part of the occult. See, the Bible warns very clearly, don't consult mediums and get in touch with the dead. But I had a philosophy professor at the New England prep school I went to who consulted mediums and was aware of a type of supernatural power that he saw in the mediums.
So there's entities in another plane, and you've come into contact with people that can access them?
Mediums, yes. Mm-hmm.
But you've never tried to?
Correct.
What if you did some research?
I have.
What if you went home tonight?
Right.
And like went to your hotel room?
Right.
And you like sat down in the dark alone, like no cameras, no people.
Right.
And you like get the lights real dark. You light a candle in the middle, you make a circle with some sand, you sit in the middle, you cross your legs, you meditate in good spirit, good hope, and you try to access those entities that are there, because you believe they're there, that you've met someone that has access to them. And what if they come down, they enter your room in like a technicolor way, they form together this being right before you, and it says, hello, I'm your mother.
Mm-hmm. Have you had that experience?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Well, if I had that experience,
it's
I would
chaotic.
definitely know.
Well, okay, well, what if I said yes?
Well, I'm not concerned about some theoretical discussion. I mean,
But
if
this
you've
is
had that
theoretical
experience, tell me.
discussion. I mean, that's why we're here. You're almost in like this hip hop battle of like beef, where like these college students come up and they're like, I'm gonna take you on, you're next, you know? And you're like, I'm a man, I got rhetoric, I got skills. And you're like, you're taking them on. And I love it, it's great, because like all these people are thinking, I'm playing out in my head, I'm like, what do they think, you know? Are they like, oh, this is good, this is great, I like this guy? Or are they like, man, this guy, I'm next, you know? And I'm just like, oh, I'm walking up, I'm just like, I'm gonna ask him if he's seen ghosts. Oh, he hasn't seen ghosts, but he believes in ghosts. And they're potentially there, but he hasn't accessed them. Why hasn't he accessed them? Because there's a text that's telling him not to access them. Whoa, that's cool, man. I think that you should give it a try.
Okay, here's why I don't.
Because these people want some action, right? They want some action. They want to hashtag some shit and like get some likes. Instagram, you want a good video. You want to school the shit out of someone that walks up. You want them to walk up and you're just like, boom, it's a boom, I know my shit. I studied, I know my shit. And it's great, I love it. Let's give them some action, man. Let's fight. Yeah.
I was speaking at Columbia University in New York City, and I had a debate with a religion professor and a Jewish rabbi. The debate went real well, I thought, until the last question from a Columbia student. He stood up at the back of the lecture hall and he said, if I understand Cliffe correctly, what he's saying is that if I reject Christ, I'm going to hell. I find that to be the essence of narrow-minded bigotry, intolerance, and I don't think he should be permitted to speak on this campus. Well, my heart sank. And the moderator turned to the religion professor and said, do you want to respond? And he said, no. Then he turned to the rabbi and said, do you want to respond? And the rabbi said, yes. I agree with you, student. I find faith in Christ to be intolerably narrow-minded and exclusive. And then the moderator turned to me and said, do you have anything to say? And I said, yes, I got two things. First of all, I've come to Columbia as a beggar who has found where living bread is in a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And I've come to tell fellow beggars where they too can find bread. And the second option is this. Let's take the Columbia route. No God, no day of judgment, definitely no heaven, definitely no hell. What you see is what you get. Not bad if someone's banking an Ivy League education. Great career potential, you got it cushy. Let's go 4 blocks from here into Harlem. Let's go to the mom of the crack baby and tell her what you see is what you get. The here and the now, that's all there is to reality. There's nothing after death. And she's going to look you in the face and say, you know, you're an Ivy League elitist. Not a bad worldview. What you see is what you get. It's all the here and the now. But it leaves me out in the cold. See, Jesus pointed out that there's a lot of evil in this world, and because God is just, he's not going to allow evil to ultimately win. That's why there's going to be a hell.
How does hell make good win over evil?
It destroys evil.
Through torturing?
Through annihilation. Wiping it out.
So you're just destroyed. You're not being tortured forever in hell.
Well, that's a good question. But I can promise you, Jesus and the Bible never give us a photograph of hell. They talk about hell as fire and also outer darkness. Well, how can fire and outer darkness coexist? So obviously it would be symbolic.
Does it also say eternal punishment?
Yeah. Eternal punishment can mean eternal suffering, but it can also mean the consequences, the ramifications are eternal consequences.
But if we're talking about God's justice, we're talking about a perfect justice. And punishment doesn't seem like a perfect justice. That's retributive justice. A more perfect justice, I would say, is restorative justice. Justice is just making what's evil into good. And so it seems like it would be better just to turn the evil into good, not to... It seems punishment is a very human way of looking at justice, and we only do it because we want revenge on the people who do things that are wrong. It's not because we're good.
Okay, I think that definition works the majority of days at the University of Texas. It's very good. I like it. We're going to try and restore. Now why don't you go to Paris and tell the family members of those people who have been blown away that we're just going to try and restore. Why don't you go and look the young lady in the face who's president of the child sex traffic trade and say, we're just going to try and restore. You see, I think if you confront evil directly enough, you begin to realize justice demands that evil be punished. In fact,
Yeah, because we want evil to be punished because we want revenge for things that are bad, but that doesn't mean that revenge is good. No one thinks revenge is good.
okay, but justice, the perpetrating of justice is not personal revenge. It is an understanding because you have murdered a human being with intrinsic value, you have forfeited your right to live.
Exactly. The prophet Ezekiel says, the soul that sins shall die.
Right.
What I don't understand is, so I get heaven. Heaven is, you fulfill the meaning of life. You glorify God and enjoy Him forever. But why it seems like forgiveness, God should just let people die and just be dead. I don't see why God has to also say, no, it's not enough, the soul that sins shall die. I also have to rip this screaming soul out of the ground and burn it forever.
Sir, I think that you're adding to the Bible. The Bible does not give us a photograph of hell. And this whole idea of God ripping this soul out and making it burn for eternity, that's not what the Bible clearly presents. In fact,
The
Jesus...
image of the lake of fire is a pretty dark image of suffering. It's pretty clearly that.
That's right. But also Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, verses 21 to 23, describes hell as him saying to people, I never knew you, depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. So let's read in context, right? Read in context and then interpret fairly.
Okay. I still don't see how hell is making justice happen, though. Why can't it just be that you're just dead and dead?
Well, in Matthew chapter 10, Jesus says, do not be afraid of the one who can destroy the body but not the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. So that is why many followers of Christ insist that hell is destruction. But I can promise you, the thought of anybody going to hell disturbs me greatly. That is why I seek to communicate to people the evidence that Jesus Christ is reliable, and I pray that all of us put our faith in Christ and receive forgiveness, the grace of God, and eternal life.
Okay, but that still doesn't really answer my question of why punishment is a perfect justice.
Because we have free will, there are consequences to our decisions. Party, party, party. Don't crack a book, don't study. Flunk, flunk, flunk. And eventually you will flunk out of this fine university. If you blame the university for expelling you, you're incorrect. It's not the university's fault that you chose to party, 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 flunk, 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 and then flunk out of this place. It's a consequence of your free will. That's called reality.
Yes, in a human society, but we're talking about the kingdom of heaven. This is supposed to be the perfect society.
We're talking about a God who is real and who deals with reality. And reality includes good, and it also includes evil. And because God is just, God has decreed the soul that sins shall die. You know from Ezekiel, from Romans. That's what the just God has decreed. Now, have you put your faith in Christ?
I have not. This is the kind of questions I asked.
Okay, why haven't you put your faith in Christ?
It's mostly just lack of evidence. I don't know.
Okay, lack of evidence. Okay, but do you hear what you're saying? When you say the reason that I can't trust in Christ is because of lack of evidence, that implies that there's a standard of evidence that must be met before you believe. Christ doesn't meet that standard of evidence. So then the two questions you've got to answer, if you're going to be honest with yourself, are, what am I living for? And what is the evidence that what I am living for is reliable? How does the evidence for whatever it is you're living for measure up to this standard of evidence that Christ falls short of?
I don't know what I'm living for. I enjoy life, so I feel fulfillment in doing the things I love and being with the people I love, but I am seeking Christ, I just haven't found it.
I'm afraid what you said is not true. You are living for something. Maybe you don't know what it is, but that's probably because you haven't examined it.
I was living for nothing. I said I don't know.
So you're telling me you can't live for Christ because of lack of evidence, but you don't know what you're living for, which means you obviously don't have much evidence that it's true, but you're going on and living for it. Do you see the intellectual hypocrisy?
I don't.
You don't? Sir, if I tell you the reason that I cannot trust Muhammad is because there's not enough evidence that Muhammad is reliable, that implies very clearly that before I trust, I have to have X amount of evidence given me. So if I'm not going to live for Allah, as Muhammad says, because of lack of evidence, obviously I'm a motivated person the same way you're a motivated person. Obviously you and I are living for something. We wouldn't dress the way we do. We wouldn't speak the way we do. And you definitely wouldn't be paying this university as much money as you're paying them if you were not a pretty highly motivated person. So what's the evidence that whatever it is, whatever option it is that you've chosen to live for, has more evidence to support its veracity than Christ does?
I don't know, but how does Christ have more evidence than Muhammad?
How does Christ have more evidence than Muhammad? Christ lived a sinless life. Muhammad was a sinner.
Based on what accounts?
Based on the eyewitness accounts.
The eyewitness accounts of people who had a vested interest in him being right?
Really? What was their vested interest? What were the perks that Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, and James got for following Christ? What were the perks?
Their religion being right? That's...
Yeah, call it rejection, persecution, suffering, and martyrdom. Not a very attractive group of perks. And you know that Muhammad used the sword. Muhammad destroyed people. All right? Muhammad had an amazing sex life.
What's wrong with having a sex life?
Nothing wrong with having a sex life until you start piling up the wives in large numbers.
I don't remember anywhere in the Bible that it condemns polygamy.
All right, at the beginning, in Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, we read, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother, be united to his wife, and the two shall become one."
Okay, that doesn't really necessarily mean... I don't know, it still doesn't necessarily mean that it's like wrong. Like, I don't believe in polygamy, but I don't care if someone has many wives or many husbands and they have a great sex life with them. That you should do that with people you love. Fine. But I kind of want to get back to, like, I feel that the accounts, they had a vested interest in them being right because they wanted to be right. It was important to them to be right.
Okay. But the evidence psychologically is that if you construct a lie, and you know it's a lie, upon the threat of death for believing the lie that you've constructed, you will recant. And those first century eyewitnesses of Christ stood before Roman soldiers, and the Roman soldiers said, "Say Caesar is Lord and live, or else maintain that your Jesus is Lord, that he's risen from the dead and will kill you for it." And every single one of them said, "I've seen Christ risen from the dead." And they died, not for a belief. They died for what they claimed to have seen.
They died for a cause because they had a network of churches, and if they recanted everything they said, then those churches would have collapsed. So they had an organization that they needed to maintain, and they really believed in keeping that organization alive. I'm not saying that they were lying. I'm saying that there's a definite possibility that they were. I don't know what happened.
All right.
It just seems more logical that they made up him rising from the dead, because people were like, "Oh, the Messiah didn't fulfill this, this, and this," and they were like, yeah, he's going to do that later because he rose from the dead, and he'll do that later. Don't worry." You know?
No, I don't know that. What I do know is, you study human psychology and you study human history, people are not willing to die to cover up what they know to be a lie. Just look at Watergate. 3 brilliant American lawyers, Dean, Ehrlichman, and Haldeman, were not willing to go through too many years in prison to cover up what they knew to be a lie. the Watergate scam. How much more unlikely a group of first-century Jewish Palestinian peasants are willing to cover up what they know to be a lie, the resurrection of Christ. I mean, if you can believe that, you're contradicting human psychology, you're contradicting history. History shows us people will not die to cover up what they know to be a lie. Will people die for a lie? Absolutely yes, but they will die convinced that the lie is the truth, right? But people don't die to cover up what they know to be a lie. The drive to live is too strong. It just overcomes you.
There are many faith options that you and I have. Jesus Christ said, "Believe in me." But there are many options to Christ. An option that more and more people are choosing is the faith option, I deserve better than I'm getting. In other words, instead of focusing on us, I focus on me. And I deserve more. I deserve a break, and I definitely deserve better than I'm getting. Jesus contradicts that faith option. And Jesus taught that there's a paradox in life. Jesus taught that it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. On one occasion, Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." But how do you do that? How do you give? How do you serve when you're empty? That is why faith in Christ is so important. Because when I put my faith in Christ, I'm accepting the fact that the God who created the cosmos loves me, treasures me, affirms me, encourages me. Then, moving out from that point of being loved, moving out from that point of being one of the beloved, I am free to give my life away in loving and serving others. Many faith options that you and I are confronted by. One faith option that many people choose today is, my partner's job is to provide pleasure for me. In fact, your job is to provide pleasure for me. In other words, my partner is a service provider. And yet Jesus said something else. In John chapter 13, he washes his disciples' feet. He, the God who created the universe, humbles himself, becomes a human being, and then adopts the posture of a servant as he washes his disciples' feet. After doing that, Jesus says, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet." Once again, there's that paradox. If I try to save my life and use you simply as a service provider, I'll lose my life. But if I lose my life in serving Christ and in serving you, I will be surprised by joy. And there's another faith option in our culture that many choose, and that is choice. Choice is God. My freedom to choose is the preeminent thing in the cosmos. Freedom of choice. Which means I'm always looking for better opportunities. I'm always looking for this nebulous idea of perfection. Our excess of choice leads to lack of intimacy. Because if I'm always looking for someone better than my spouse, better than my friends, I'm never going to put in the hard work that is necessary in order to develop a deep relationship. And without deep relationships, there's no such thing as intimacy. Intimacy is not being a fire hydrant and just gushing water out. Intimacy is building trust. As you open up your life and become vulnerable with another person, as that other person opens up their life and becomes vulnerable with you. But that's not a fire hydrant process. Instead, that is a long process that involves give and take. It involves compromise. It involves surrendering and yielding to another person as you seek to encourage them, as you seek to help them realize their dreams. That's a long process. That does not happen overnight. And if you and I are always looking for that perfect person out there. We're always going to be looking over the shoulder of the person right in front of us, our spouse, our good friends. We'll be always looking for that perfect person who will make our lives happy. Friend, that person doesn't exist. But there is a God who is perfect. He's revealed himself by becoming man in Jesus Christ. And Jesus pointed out that real happiness, real fulfillment in life comes from building an intimate relationship with the living God, actually knowing God. And then real joy and happiness also comes from building deep, intimate relationships with other people. But that involves saying, I'm sorry. It involves doing the hard work of forgiving. It involves accepting another person with all their faults and warts and limitations. It involves being willing to go the extra mile, to walk in someone else's shoes, to seek to empathize and sympathize with them in their need, in their hurts, in their disappointments in life. And so Jesus said, come to me. All you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Yes, following Christ takes commitment. But it's a commitment that leads to intimacy. It's a commitment that leads to depth of spiritual experience. It's an intimacy that is like nothing else. And Jesus says, come to me, trust in me, learn from me, and I will guide you through life. I will guide you through death, out the other side to eternal life, for I am the good shepherd, and the good shepherd does not desert. The good shepherd protects, provides, gives life, even life eternal. Have you accepted Christ? Have you trusted in him? Are you growing an intimate spiritual relationship with him? That's what he challenges and calls you and me to do. God bless you as you make that most important decision. I'm the pastor of Grace Community Church. We meet at Grace Farms in New Canaan, Connecticut. The address is 365 Lukeswood Road, New Canaan, Connecticut. I'd love to invite you to join us this Sunday for our 9:30 service and for our half-hour service from 5 to 5:30 in the afternoon. Thanks for joining us for these few minutes. Have a great day.